I'm Celeste Headley. I'm the president and CEO of Headway DEI Training, and our whole goal is to bring anti-racist reform to journalism and public media. But frankly, a lot of the stuff that we need to teach to journalists, my colleagues, is the same stuff that all of us need to learn. And today I want to talk about making sure everybody gets heard, especially in workplace meetings. I feel like most of us know that statistically speaking, men are more likely to talk in meetings. Men interrupt women far more often than they interrupt other men. Sometimes that happens because they want to explain something the woman actually knows more about, or reiterate the woman's ideas if it were their own. The fact of the matter is that we actually have a lot more data and research about gender inequalities when it comes to speaking up in meetings and being heard in meetings than we do about racial interruptions. But we do know that Black women and Latinas say that they are not heard more often. They're way more likely to report that they're interrupted. Sometimes this behavior is not intentional. In fact, often that's the case, but it is pervasive. That's not my opinion. That's proven by research. And because it's not intentional and yet pervasive, that makes me think that a lot of these interruptions, a lot of these talking over incidents, a lot of these times when a man will reiterate what a woman has just said or a person of color has just said, I feel as though a lot of times people aren't even realizing that's what's happening. So I want to talk about how to move forward and make sure that meetings are inclusive, that everyone is heard, and to sort of create a system for yourself so that even if you're unaware of what's happening, you can make a better meeting, a more inclusive meeting. And we're going to do it using a system that's called WWIGS. It's WWIGS, WWIGS. This first W stands for the whole group in on the action. So this means that you have to sort of start being aware of who is more dominant and who is less dominant when it comes to meetings. Start keeping track. This is especially important if you have remote people who are attending who are remote, or if the whole meeting is remote. It can become even more likely that dominant people will sort of carry the whole floor. You have to regularly check in on people, and especially the remote people, to make sure that if they have ideas, that they're able to follow the conversation, that they're keeping up what's going on, and that they may have something to contribute. So whole group in on the action, that means you are going to be proactive about it. You're going to call on people individually and make sure that they're being heard. The next W is for write it down. So let's say that there is an issue coming up that everyone needs to sort of problem solve, or someone brings up a problem among teamwork. Whatever the big issue is, when that comes up, give people time. Say, oh, this is kind of a big issue. Let's give everyone a few minutes to put your ideas on paper. Then you can go around and have everyone share their ideas. This works for a couple of different reasons. Number one, not everyone is a quick thinker. Not everyone is fast on their feet. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing inherently better about someone who is quick on their feet than someone who isn't. So in order to accommodate both styles, you need to give everyone a little bit of time. This actually might help people prevent people from saying things maybe they didn't mean, or coming up with not so great ideas. But for the most part, it gives people who are a little less vocal, it gives them time to gather their thoughts, to feel a little more confident about what they're going to say, and it'll then encourage them to speak up, especially because you're going to go individually to each person and ask them what their ideas were, what were their thoughts. So again, we're talking about WWIGS, that's WWIGS. We've got both of the W's. The I is interruptions. So essentially, you are not going to allow people to interrupt, and you're going to do it as civilly as possible. Think things, you can come saying things like, hold on a moment. Oh, wait just one sec. Or hang on to that thought. These kind of things are the way that when someone interrupts, you can say, hold on one second. I actually want to hear what Bethany was saying. 1 second, hold on to that idea. I want to hear what Jerry was just saying. before we move on to something else. The more that you do this, the more people learn. They'll start to become aware of when interrupting. So this can actually train people to stop interrupting. If one person is particularly bad at this, one thing that experts often recommend is that you give them a whiteboard. You make them the person that's writing down what's happening in the meeting, or you put them in charge of writing notes. And this sort of forces them to shift into listening mode. It forces them to pay attention to what each person is saying rather than constantly thinking about what it is that they want to add. So WWIG is give credit where it's due. So as each person contributes, you can say, that's a great idea. That's an interesting idea. It's nice to hear from you. Whatever it is, you can give credit to each person as they come up with things. We have a lot of research that shows that women especially, and we can probably shift this over to people of color as well, their contributions are number one, not noted. They tend to feel less appreciated, but also importantly, those things that women and people of color contribute rarely show up on their performance reviews. And this is partly because people don't store that information in their heads. Because those contributions aren't being acknowledged, the contributions don't help them when they're trying to get promotions or raises in pay, when they're trying to get recognized. So make sure that all of those contributions are acknowledged. Give credit where it's due. Men have significantly higher performance evaluations, and that's partly because their contributions are usually noted and remembered. So let's start making that equal. Solidify consensus, that's our S. So what you're going to do at the end of a meeting is you're going to recap what's happened, and you can actually give credit at that point to who came up with what ideas. You're just going to give a quick summary of what's happened, what the action points are, what you're moving on to. And this is a moment for people to voice their concerns about what's happened. Maybe voice support for certain ideas or moving forward. Put their hand up to volunteer for a particular task. Using this recap at the end not only gives you another chance to acknowledge people's contributions, but again, for those people who need extra time to gather thoughts, this gives them a chance to rethink over what has happened and to give you maybe some new ideas. This really allows you to take the best advantage of all the different thinkers in your group. WWIGS. That's your system for making sure that your meetings are more inclusive and that everybody gets heard. As always, thank you so much. If you want more information about what Headway does, please go to headwaytraining.org. Have a good one.